Hi everyone, we are live now.
Okay, thank you, Asif. Namaskar. Welcome to the webinar on making a global impact in standards setting, the fourth of a 5-part series on digital technology innovations, case studies from India and the Asia Pacific region. I am Bindu Srivastav, and I'm responsible for Marcom and Partner Relations at TSDSI. I, along with my colleagues, Mr. Asif Iqbal, Ms. Shifali Sinha, Ms. Sonia Sachdev Sharma, and our collaborator, Mr. Calvin Chan, are your hosts for this webinar. Before we begin, here are a few hygiene announcements. All attendees will be muted throughout the workshop. If you have any questions for the speakers, please type them in the questions tab. This webinar is being recorded and will be posted to the TSDSI website within the next few days. Speakers are requested to kindly deliver your presentations within the allotted time durations. A warning chime will be sounded by the timekeeper 2 minutes before your scheduled time. Here is a brief introduction to the webinar series. This series is organized jointly by the Telecommunications Standards Development Society India, TSDSI, and the International Telecommunications Union, ITU, with support from Department of Telecommunications and select ministries of Government of India and other partners from the Asia Pacific region. It will showcase digital technology implementations and success stories from the public as well as private sector, with the objective of strengthening collaboration within the region on digital communication technologies and standards. This fourth webinar showcases standards development activities from India and the Asia Pacific region. A few materials on ITU and TSDSI related to the topic space are available as handouts in the handouts tab in the dashboard of the tool. Participants may like to download these for their reference. This session is being chaired by Mr. A.K. Mittal, former Senior DDG, Telecom Engineering Center, Department of Telecommunications, India, who's currently serving as advisor to TSDSI on standards development in wireless and wireline systems. Mr. Mittal also guides TSDSI engagement with 3GPP and ITU, especially with the ITU-R. Mr. Mittal, in his career spanning over 44 years, has worked in a variety of domains like satellite communications, OFC, microwave, mobile networks, switching systems, network management, licensing, regulation, standards, testing and certification, etc. I now invite Mr. Mittal to kindly start and run the session. Over to you, Mr. Mittal.
Thank you, Bindu. Thank you very much for giving this introduction to the session and about me. So, good morning, good afternoon, good evening to all the esteemed participants and distinguished speakers, depending on the region where they are in today. It's a morning in India, around 9:30. So on behalf of TSDSI and ITU, I welcome all of you to this webinar. And I will especially welcome our distinguished speakers. Distinguished speakers, His Excellency Emmanuel Ray Kiantic, Department of Information and Communication Technology, Republic of Philippines. Mr. R. Shakya, Deputy Director General, International Relations, Department of Telecom, Government of India. Miss Atsuka Okuda-san, Regional Director for Asia Pacific ITU. Professor Kiran Kuchi, IIT Hyderabad. Ms. Purnima Shandilya, CDOT. And Mr. Abdul Karim Abdul Razak, Head Standards Division, Malaysian Communications and Multimedia Commission. We are in the fourth webinar of the series as explained by Bindu, and you are all most welcome to this particular webinar, which is on making an impact on global standards setting. Now, standards development has been, taking place for a long time in telecommunications, and ITU has been in the forefront and at the center of all the telecom standards development in the world. Of late, all of us have observed that there is a growing interest in standards from not only from the telecom, formerly known as telecom community, like manufacturers and service providers and governments, but also from various verticals who are the user communities of telecommunication. And this is visible in growing participation in the standards bodies when we go and visit, the kind of participation we have from across the world, and the number of people participating and the variety of organizations which they are there, and the energy which they put in. So this awareness and interest is increasing gradually. And the reason also is that the example of success of mobile communication across the world has actually spurred a lot of innovations in not only for mobile communication but associated equipments, networks, and services. That is where the interest from the user side also has grown. Now the innovations are happening at a very fast pace all across the world in different regions, and many of them may have, we do not know whether they have, but once we see the innovations happening around us, a lot of them have a potential to become parts of the global standards. But the journey from innovation to making a mark in the global standards and then finally into the implementation of the equipment and networks and services is a long journey, requires a lot of perseverance and and continuity of people, investment, and so on. But nonetheless, the onus of taking care of the local or per se the regional requirements into the global standards lies on the standards bodies, and there must be an effort by the standard bodies that the requirements brought in by regional organizations and countries, they should get a special focus that they become part of the global standards. Now today we have a panel of distinguished speakers, very experienced people in different fields of telecommunications and from ITU, who will elucidate on different aspects of the standard setting, how setting is done and how the impacts are made, what are the current use cases and real cases where the impact has been made in global standards. So now, without taking much time, I will now invite the speakers. So our first speaker is Mr. R. Shatya, who is the Deputy Director General in Department of Telecommunications, handling the international relations. Earlier, he was working as Senior Advisor to ICT Authority, Government of Mauritius, and was entrusted with the additional responsibility of Executive Director of ICT Authority. He is an engineer by training and did engineering from National Institute of Technology, Bhopal. Has a vast experience of 34 years, playing various roles in Department of Telecommunication. In fact, we have been colleagues in the department. So I know him well, and so he has expertise in a number of areas you see on your screen in different fields of telecommunication. And now he is holding the very important portfolio of international relations where he deals with the standards bodies, ITU and others also. So I request Mr. R. Shatya to give his introductory remarks.
Thank you, Mr. Mittal. Very pleased to listen from you. We had grown under your guidance in the department and always got benefited from your patronage. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. His Excellency, Mr. Emmanuel, Ms. Akuda, Regional Director, ITU, Professor Kiran Kochi, a very eminent name in India, especially working towards the 5G and the beyond technologies in the standardization field, and all other distinguished speakers, guests. Indeed, it's a pleasure for me to be part of this specific session. Why we say that this is a special session? In the emerging environment, wherein the technology is moving from the typical hardware circuit switch networks to the totally dominated by the IP networks, which are having three distinct features. Now, those features are the things which are going to lead the things in different directions. First, the software-defined networks. Second is the network virtualization. And third part is the edge computing. Now, if you look into these three specific aspects, standardization has become more important than the earlier one. If we go one by one, even in the edge computing, we understand that the hardware could be there, which could be utilized by any application writer for the specific use. The issues are when the different applications get developed and if they are not interoperable. If application of one is not able to speak with the application of other, whatever the hardware we put at the cell will become useless. So we shall not become dependent again, since the mother application belongs to one and further developments have to go to the same person. The advantage of the edge computing will come when there is standardization with the interoperability, where anyone can have his application and they could be interconnected by using of any kind of non-APIs. There shall not be any requirement of any specific proprietary kind of connectivity needs. Same thing is applicable for the software-defined networks. The software-defined networks alone is not adequate unless they are interoperable. And this same aspect is applicable for the network virtualization, putting them anywhere on the cloud. So it is more imperative to have standards nowadays to actually reap the benefits of forthcoming technologies. If we are going to be dependent on the sources which are belonging to the few vendors, 3 or 4, they determine the cost, they drive the directions, and ultimately they lead to their businesses at the cost whatever they prefer to sell. A buyer or the deployer in any of the network, whether it's a telecom service provider within the government or in the private sector, he gets fixed unless the interoperability is available with them through the standards. So in the given circumstances, the importance of the standardization is much higher. Another important aspect is, since the availability of the fabs, chip designs, chip development is limited to some specific countries who had invested a lot of money there. That capability development takes longer time, it takes high investments, whereas developing applications is easier, and the benefits can be reaped of the coming technologies only when the smaller countries, the growing countries are able to develop their own applications and run on the hardware available all across the world globe. That only benefit in terms of adding to their economies, and they can be really part of the entire journey instead of just being the consumer of the basic technologies being developed by 3 or 4 operators and reaping the benefits of those technologies for the entire life cycle of those products. Since we have very eminent speakers, I honestly do not want to go into the much details how the journey could be. Only thing which I would like to emphasize is, here we need to have the collaborations together. Collaborations at the level of bilateral, collaboration at the level of the multilateral, and we need the support, guidance of the entities like ITU, who had been pioneering, leading the activities relating to the telecommunications, but the scenario had changed. The applications are not limited only to the environment of the typical telecommunication. Effectively, when we talk of other sectors, whether it's aviation, whether it's defense, whether it's transport, agriculture, health, there are organizations in the standards which are working in the expert domains. So there is a need to have the cross connectivity among the standard developing bodies of other sectors as well. We understand these all are being driven by the ICT initiatives, by the digital involvement, but the need of those sectors are different. And probably there, the ITU has to shape itself to meet the requirement of all these sectors together, bringing them together, so the standards development bodies, say in health field, is able to collaborate with the ITU or the standard bodies like TSDSI, so that we are on the common pace, reaping the fruits for all sectors coming from the digital inclusion, digital empowerment, and the emerging technologies that can reach to everyone together. With this, I would like to stop here and wish the organization and the organizer a grand success of this seminar, and look forward for larger participations in such activities in the future. Over to you, Mr. Mittal.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Shakya, for your these remarks, and you have actually brought in very important points of collaboration and support of ITU in infrastructure development and also for further development of the standards. So now I invite Ms. Okuda-san for her introductory remarks. Ms. Okuda-san was appointed as the Regional Director of the International Telecommunication Union Regional Office for Asia and the Pacific in April 2020. Prior to the new assignment, she was the Chief of the ICT and Development Section at the UNESCAP from 2015 to 2020, where she promoted the development of regional broadband connectivity through the implementation of Asia Pacific Information Superhighway Initiative. Okuda-san, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mittal. His Excellency, Mr. Emmanuel Ray R. Kaintik, Secretary, Department of Information and Communication Technology, the Government of the Philippines. Mr. Abdul Karim Abdul Razak, Head, Standards Development Department, Technology and Standards Division, Malaysian Communications and Multimedia Commission. Mr. Al Shakia, Deputy Director General, International Relations, Department of Telecommunications, Ministry of Information, Ministry of Communications, Government of India. Distinguished panelists and participants, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to everyone. My name is Atsuko Okuda, the Regional Director of the ITU Regional Office for Asia and the Pacific. I'm very pleased to be part of this fourth session of the webinar series entitled Digital Technology Innovations, Case Studies from India and the Asia and the Pacific region. May I first express my deepest appreciation for His Excellency, Mr. Kaintik's participation in this event. We are deeply grateful to have this opportunity to learn more about DICT's experience in the policy and standards arena pertaining to digital technology innovations, and eagerly look forward to your keynote remarks. May I also take this opportunity to express my sincere appreciation to the Telecommunication Standards Development Society, India, for co-organizing this event with ITU and to the Department of Telecommunications and other government ministries of India for their support in the organization of this webinar series. Ladies and gentlemen, our ITU 2021 Facts and Figures report revealed that 2.9 billion people still remain offline. In Asia and the Pacific, this is almost 1.7 billion people, or around 58.6% of the total unconnected population. Only 54% of females are using the internet in Asia and the Pacific, compared with 59% of males. The urban-rural digital divide is also stark, with 75% of urban residents using the internet, compared with only 39% in rural areas. To tackle these barriers, digital innovations are essential, but big digital innovations cannot work without collaboration and multi-stakeholder engagement, as Mr. Shakya just mentioned. The important work being done by standardization organizations, especially in ITU's Telecommunication Standardization Bureau, is paramount in ensuring that innovative technologies can diffuse to provide connectivity for all, among other benefits. Today's session brings us to the heart of this topic. The esteemed speakers ahead of us will talk about engagement from India with the global fora, as well as to present case studies of countries who are engaging to make a global impact in our standardization efforts. It is hoped that these discussions will promote regional cross-fertilization of ideas and co-creation, as well as facilitate regional cooperation among all those in attendance. Ladies and gentlemen, ITU is not standing still in this regard. Last month, we hosted the 4-day Asia and the Pacific Regional Dialogue on Digital Transformation. Over 1,000 participants attended to discuss how inclusion and connectivity go hand in hand, the multiplier effects of emerging technologies accelerating digital transformation, and how digital connectivity and technology will enable faster COVID recovery while advancing the SDGs. In fact, the third webinar with TSDSI was organized during the regional dialogue under the topic of FinTech advancement with 5G. We have also launched the International Center of Digital Innovation, or ICODI. ICODI is designed as a change catalyst for our member countries, applying new mindset, skills, processes, and tools to create an ecosystem that is fit for the digital age. We envision ICODI as a platform of collaboration, co-design, and co-innovation for partners and initiatives for meaningful connectivity globally, including in Asia and the Pacific. Additionally, as you may know, our Partner to Connect initiative has also been launched. This innovative platform is engaging all stakeholders to mobilize and pledge new resources, partnerships, and commitments to foster meaningful connectivity and digital transformation in the hardest to connect communities, with a focus on, but not limited to, least developed countries, landlocked developing countries, and small island developing states. Finally, ITU is organizing the World Telecommunication Standardization Assembly from 1st to 9th March 2022, immediately preceded by the Global Standards Symposium. We are also hosting the World Telecommunication Development Conference in June 2022. We hope that the session today will not only disseminate knowledge, but also build actions and next steps towards these important global conferences and above. Thank you again, and I look forward to today's fascinating discussions. Back to you, Mr. Mittal.
Thank you, Mr. Kudasan, for your valuable comments about what ITU is doing to address the inclusivity and connectivity issues, and how in the future, when these world level conferences handle, how will they address these aspects so they are taken care of in the future work of ITU and the global community. Thank you very much. Now I will invite His Excellency Secretary Emmanuel Ray Kaintik. He is acting secretary. He was first appointed as the assistant secretary to the Digital Philippines in 2019. Under his supervision, he reinforced the administration's priority programs on connectivity by expediting their rollout and expanding their coverage. He has also championed the Digital Cities and Provinces program, or Digital Cities 2025, to further spur IT business process management, IT BPM, industries development and investment in the countryside. He aims to motivate investors in expanding the industry beyond the metropolitan areas. He took the lead in DICT's role in developing and managing ICT projects in response to COVID-19 pandemic, and served as the member of IATF MEID and chairperson of the sub-technical working groups on information and communication technology solutions. His initiatives as chair of the TWG aided in the whole of government COVID-19 response and recovery efforts through the use of ICT. These efforts were given further recognition in January 2021 when he was appointed as the Undersecretary for Digital Philippines, and in December 2021 as the acting secretary of the DICT. Prior to his service in the government, he ran a career of more than 20 years in hybrid industry of business management, finance information technology, financial technology, fintech, and the digitalization of government. Mr. Kaintik has driven teams and corporations, managed colleagues and clients, and envisioned, implemented, and succeeded in various projects. So, Secretary Emmanuel Ray.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, sir.
Okay, I'd like my colleague to share the screen. Jessica, can you please share your screen?
Requesting presentation rights, please.
Yeah, given the rights. Thank you.
So, Mr. A.K. Mittal, Advisor Networks of Telecommunication Standards Development Society, India. So, Mr. R. Shakya, Deputy Director General, International Relations of the Department of Telecommunications, India. Ms. Atsuko Okuda, Regional Director for Asia and the Pacific of the International Telecommunications Union. Professor Kiran Kuchi of the Indian Institute of Technology, Hyderabad. Ms. Purnima Sandilya, 1M2M SDS Vice Chair. Ms. Abdul Karim Abdul Razak, Head of the Standards Development Department of the Malaysian Communications and Multimedia Commission. Colleagues, guests, ladies and gentlemen, a pleasant afternoon to all of us. We from the Department of Information and Communications Technology, Philippines, recognize the remarkable developments in the ICT industry in the last few years, despite the existing global state of affairs brought about by the pandemic. The Asia-Pacific region is not alone in these difficult times. Countries all over the world are united in our struggle to recover and regain our strength as nations. To survive in the new normal is not enough. We must learn to adapt so we can thrive in the digital age, which is becoming more reliant on information and communications technology as each day passes. Our day-to-day activities have become increasingly dependent on connectivity and telecommunications, which can be considered as essential commodities. In the digital age, connectivity is a basic right that must be accessible to all. As public servants, it is our duty to provide the needs of our people. Setting standards for public service is paramount for a nation that is ready to face the new normal. As such, we must act swiftly to address the growing digital divide, not just in our respective countries, but for the entire Asia-Pacific region and the world as well. One of the main concerns that we should look into is the cost of being and staying connected. For the internet to be accessible to all, we must ensure that it is affordable for your average individual. According to the Broadband Commission for Sustainable Development, the cost of entry-level broadband services should be less than 2% of an individual's monthly income, and most of the countries in the region are far from this target. To address this concern, we in the Philippines have launched the National Broadband Program, which provides the blueprint for an enhanced broadband infrastructure in the country. The program focuses on enhancing the existing digital infrastructure, building a pervasive broadband infrastructure, encouraging investments in the unserved and underserved communities, amending and creating ICT-related policies, and stimulating demand for local content. As the National Broadband Program strengthens the broadband infrastructure in the country, the free Wi-Fi for all in public places and state universities and colleges program aims to accelerate the Philippine government's efforts in enhancing internet accessibility for Filipinos to bolster economic, social, and educational efforts to bridge the growing digital divide. The Free Wi-Fi for All program provides free, fast, and secure internet access in public places across the Philippines. We have also enforced the Common Tower policy, which aims to fast-track the rollout of shared passive telecommunications tower infrastructures. Shared PTTIs are towers which are non-exclusive and are accessible for common use. The policy will intensify the deployment of shared PTTIs in the country to suffice the growing number of subscribers without compromising the quality of mobile internet service. The policy is also expected to boost economic activity by encouraging investments from independent tower companies and other internet providers. It also provides the regulatory interventions that would promote sharing of passive ICT infrastructure or towers that shall in turn reduce capital expenditure for telcos, speed up the issuance of permits, licenses, and authorizations for tower build-up, and ultimately expand telco coverage and improve quality of service. Recently, the Philippines was hit by Typhoon Odette, which is known globally as Typhoon Rai. Communities suffered power outages, which resulted in the lack of connectivity and telecommunication services as the typhoon ravaged the islands of Visayas and northern Mindanao. Flash floods and landslides in addition to devastatingly strong winds, made it difficult to immediately deploy response teams as road access and communication lines were severely affected. The DICT was quick to respond as we have aided the communities through our prepared programs and initiatives. We have also closely coordinated with local telecommunication companies to survey the damage done to their infrastructures, as well as to monitor the day-to-day restoration status of their communication lines. This brings me to my second point. We must also recognize the importance of communication during and after disasters. One of our initiatives is the Government Emergency Communication Systems, or GECS, which provides an enhanced level of public safety by issuing early advisories and warnings before the onset of an emergency or a disaster. Likewise, it also provides better response and coordination with local emergency service providers by providing spatial data information that can be used during the rehabilitation of affected communities. We have also partnered with the United Nations World Food Programme for the deployment of GEC's mobile emergency operations emergency vehicles and the conduct of emergency awareness campaigns. Furthermore, we established Connect Tawag, that's Tagalog for connect and call, to support the communities affected by Typhoon Rai. Connect Tawag aims to connect and provide facilities that can provide access to information and telecommunications to the general public. These centers are equipped with VSATs that serve as mobile cellular base stations. People can go to these centers to connect and communicate with their family members and friends through text messages, calls, or through the free Wi-Fi connection. We have also provided charging ports for devices since the electricity in these areas are yet to be restored. This ensures that the communication lines are available even in places where connectivity and information is not easily accessible for the average citizen. To further improve our resilience and response during calamities, we must encourage collaboration with the government and telecommunication companies. Our goal should be to develop and institutionalize emergency telecommunication systems that would have little to no downtime during and after disasters. With all these things to consider, we see that a lot must still be done to fully digitalize and digitally transform our nations. However, as I have mentioned earlier, we are not alone in this fight. We are fortunate to have ICT leaders and institutions all over the world who are more than willing to collaborate and share ideas to further improve the ICT sectors in our country. I would like to take this opportunity to thank the International Telecommunications Union and the Telecommunications Standards Development Society, India, for this opportunity to exchange ideas and best practice principles with our ICT leaders. With our unified mind and goals in mind, let us all continue to collaborate and create initiatives that would improve the lives of our countrymen. We affirm our commitment to steadily upgrade the nation's telecommunications infrastructure and to help stimulate economic activity and improve the nation's participation in the global economy. Let us all look forward to an improved digital economy in the new normal and beyond. Thank you, everyone, and mabuhay.
Thank you, Your Excellency, Secretary Emmanuel Ray, for your address. You have really brought in the fundamental issue of the basic right to the connectivity which your government is taking as a principle, and also aiming to keep the cost of getting and remaining connected both to be on the lower side, and the plans your government has to achieve these targets. They are real. The National Broadband Program, the Wi-Fi for all, and the Common Tower Policy. They are really the key to spread of the infrastructure and connectivity to the remote parts and everyone in the country. So I think these are the government is the nodal point for ensuring that the connectivity is spread all across, and I think the efforts of Philippine government, as highlighted by Your Excellency, are really inspiring. Thank you for your address. Now I invite Professor Kiran Kuchi to give his talks on the TSDSI engagement with the 3GPP and ITU. I will introduce him. Dr. Kiran Kuchi, a professor at IIT Hyderabad, is a globally recognized innovator in the realm of 5G standards development. He has introduced the culture of developing wireless standards related patents in India through his leadership role at Telecom Standards Development Society India and has contributed towards the creation of several important technologies in the 5G standards. Dr. Kuchi has invented and co-invented over 100 patents in the 4G and 5G technology, of which more than 50 patents have resulted from his work carried out in India. So, Dr. Kuchi, floor is yours.
Thank you, Mittalji. If you can, yeah, I think I'm getting the share screen right. Please give me a moment. While I share the screen, first, I'm very happy to speak at this event. I'm very glad to see our friends and Southeast Asian neighbors have taken the time to join this event. We're very glad to have them here. First, I would like to thank His Excellency, Mr. Emmanuel Ray, and Shakya-ji, DDG-IR. Thank you for your valuable words. Ms. Atsuko-san, thank you for presenting your views on ITU various activities. Thank you, Mr. Abdul Karim. And Mittalji, thanks for excellent organization, and Ms. Purnima, and also various guests and organizers, attendees. Thank you very much. I would like to spend a few minutes on our journey, especially TSDSI's journey in ITU and 3GPP standards development process. Let me make my screen full screen. Just in a little trouble here. Let me just. Mittalji, can you see the screen?
No, not your screen. Yeah, now. Yeah, I can see your screen.
Thank you. TSDSI is an organizational partner of 3GPP project, and also TSDSI is one of the new entrants into this OP framework. It's been 7-8 years since the inception of TSDSI. Many of TSDSI representatives you see here today have been associated with TSDSI from its very inception, rather before its inception. I think Mr. Mittalji was there before its birth, and he's been spearheading, for the last many years, contributing to the organization, and Bindu and others. So I want to add here that when TSDSI was formed, there were a lot of questions what this new SDO would do. This is a good opportunity for me to reflect on what TSDSI has done and where it is going in terms of influencing global wireless standards at 3GPP and ITU. So in this presentation, I would like to go through the contributions made since inception of TSDSI through the 3GPP cellular standards development process. And also, as many of you may be aware, that TSDSI has been very active in the IMT 2020 definition, on the standards creation process, as well as the current discussions on IMT 2030 process. A quick summary and a recap of what has prevailed in the last several years. The individual members that contribute to 3GPP standards development process, who are members of TSDSI, they're called IMs. There is a short acronym for that. They have been contributing to 3GPP since 2015, as I recall, because I was actually one of the first few people attending these meetings. I started going to a few meetings in 2015, and practically India was an unknown entity at the time in 3GPP. Then many of my friends at CIVIT joined, and also IIT Madras and other organizations slowly and steadily joined this effort in the last few years. And it's a very fruitful journey so far, but we have a lot more to do. In the last few years, interestingly, the time when we started developing contributions to 3GPP, that was the time that coincided with the 5G development. That is 5G NR study item creation and also the specifications. We have seen the full cycle of 5G standards creation, both from 3GPP perspective and from our own efforts, and various releases of this 5G. We have gone through a full cycle, I must say, in about 7 years. In the process, a lot of technical contributions have been made from India. And the bulk of this work has been, as you can very well understand, this is a new effort, so it's been funded by various ministries in the government. And these technical documents have been submitted to 3GPP in various work groups. They have these multiple working groups in RAN 1, 2, 4, and various other working groups. I'm highlighting here a bunch of people have worked together to write these technical documents and incorporate this technology into 3GPP specifications. And there are more people who have become aware of the importance of developing standards and have joined this effort. And more recently, the Ministry of Electronics has given a specific project just to advance the and encourage people to increase their participation in 3GPP. There is a particular project meant for that. And as part of this project, we are expecting many more new institutes to join this effort. Not only these academic institutes that I have highlighted here, personally, I know that there are at least 10 companies building 5G products in India very actively, rigorously. And in due course of time, I would expect many of those companies will end up participating in the standard development process. And I do know that TSDSI is making a lot of efforts to bring many more new entities into the standards creation process, both at 3GPP and IT. Some of the very significant contributions that we can talk of, that India has influenced the 5G journey. One is the NB IoT. We have participated in release 13, 14, 15, many releases of NB IoT evolution. And some of you may recall that there is a particular TDD mode of NB IoT that is something that is driven by TSDSI and its members in 3GPP. As part of the 5G new radio project at 3GPP, over 3 releases, we have some reasonably good accomplishments that we can mention. For example, the introduction of NAVIC constellation, NAVIC satellite constellation into the 3GPP ecosystem. It is now part and parcel of 3GPP. Along with the other constellations, NAVIC is now included in the devices. As you very well know, for every country, the band support is very important for deployments. And TSDSI members, have actively pursued the carrier aggregation, TDD, FDD band combinations, and made sure that the devices ecosystem is created to fulfill the needs of India 4G deployments by ensuring that their participation in 3GPP got this required support. And India has been a very big mover and prime driver. I will talk about this more, and I'm pretty sure our friends in Southeast Asia has similar needs on coverage enhancements. Unlike 2G days where the cell sites tend to be larger and the operation frequencies are around 800 megahertz, maybe up to 2 gigahertz, the world is moving towards, whether we like or not, to use of very, very high frequencies. This is inevitable move. I mean, you have seen this in 5G, and you'll probably see more so in 6G, AMD 2030. As you move more towards use of higher frequencies where there is plenty of spectrum, the coverage becomes very, very, very critical. So one of the work items on coverage enhancement in 3GPP release 17 has been driven by Indian entities, and I think it has reached more or less successful completion by now. Release 17 is going through completion process in 3GPP. One of the significant components of this coverage enhancement is introduction of a new waveform, hybrid to BPSK with spectrum shaping waveform. It gives the ability for devices to transmit at the peak capabilities of the power amplifier, so you can actually get quite a lot out of the device and increase the coverage. And this has been included, as part of 5G standards. I'll make a few more remarks about that. So, in summary, for a young SDO, I mean, you may say, well, you're 7 years old, but in the standards development process compared to the age of ITU, 7-8 years is fairly young. I think that we carved a good path for us, TSDSI, and I think that in the next decade, TSDSI will probably make contributions on par with the rest of the 6 major members. That's our vision, ambition and vision. On the ITU front, as you very well know, ITU is the body that really sets the requirements and codifies these standards. TSDSI has been working very, very closely with DOT, TEC, and WPC over the last several years. And our governmental agencies historically have had a long history of contributions to ITU, and that continues. And our National Study Group, is the body that coordinates these various efforts with respect to ITU contributions. And TSDSI is a new entrant into this fold, and a good working relation has been established between TSDSI and the remaining government agencies, and we have been working well in tandem to push India's agenda into working 45, 5D. Indian academia has also become fairly an active player, and you have seen that in the IMD 2020 process. There are 2 IITs at least are members of ITU. Probably there are more, but I'm listing a couple of them here. Just to recap our journey, to our friends, those who are working with us, for the last several years. First of all, I would like to thank some of our friends in supporting our agenda in ITU. We would continue to seek your support in ITU wherever, whenever required. We would like to have a good working collaboration with the friends who are attending this meeting. In the IMT 2020 process, India has joined the activity a bit late, I must say, because the IMT 2020 probably started around 2010 timeframe, and TSDSI didn't exist back then. We joined at midpoint of the project, and nevertheless, India, with help from DOT and TEC and WPC, managed to introduce one important requirement: low mobility large cell, as a mandatory requirement in IMT 2020. I'll make a few more remarks about that, which is, I think, in itself is a very important accomplishment, because this is not only an India's need, but also there are many countries that have a similar such requirement. it's a global requirement. All these efforts culminated into India's own submission, radio interface technology, IMT 2020 radio interface technology. It's called TSDSI RIT, accepted by Working Party 5D. It's one of the multiple submissions accepted as an RIT for 5G. TSDSI has kickstarted its journey towards IMT 2030. We've been very active, and you will expect more contributions to flow from India. Just to recap, this so-called low mobility large cell contribution at ITU. This is a bit technical, but the point I'm trying to make here is that traditionally ITU and 3GPP both did not, in my opinion, adequate attention to the so-called rural configuration, the way that the channel model or the performance requirements. Their notion of rural was a bit different, for historical reasons. So this is where India has made its pitch to include large cells, large rural cells as a mandatory requirement. And this effort has led to this following, you can see the slide, which is picked up from the IMT 2020. In addition to the rural EMBB existing test environment, which was available before India started its contribution, an intersite distance of 6 kilometers is introduced as a mandatory requirement for IMT 2020. And just to give you a reference, the distance between cell sites was 1.7 kilometers before that. That's a substantial increase. And these are all symbolic numbers, but in reality, we would expect this low mobility large cell to give you much larger cell sites, much more than this 6 kilometer ISD, because technology continues to evolve. The TSDSI RIT was built upon this requirement, and it was a modification of 3GPP standard with a particular new waveform introduced to increase the cell range. And this modification resulted in a new standard that is now called TSDSI RIT 5GI, with this particular new LMLC compatible waveform that's introduced into this standard. India taking this slight detour on introducing this requirement has led to multiple discussions over many years, and there has been a proposal to merge so-called 5GI and 5GNR standards into one globally interoperable solution. This is more or less a certainty that is this merger is going to happen in the next few months, and a handshake agreement has been made and some preparatory work has already been done. So the way this will happen is that TSDSI and 3GPP RAN will work together, a solution that includes certain elements of 5GI standard, which is one of the waveforms that I mentioned, into the 3GPP fold, and there forward, India will continue to use this so-called merged standard, which is based on 3GPP 5GNR family of standards. And this merger is going to be effective starting 3GPP release 17, and there is no impact to the previous releases of 5G standard, that is the existing 3GPP release 15 and 16. So I would like to summarize our journey so far. TSDSI, as an organizational partner of 3GPP, is committed to the process of transpositions of 3GPP specifications. We've been doing that. We'll continue to do that. We already have sent 3GPP 5GNR release 15 and 16 TSDSI standards, and we recommended them as national standards for adoption in India. And release 17 onwards, the merged 3GPP specifications will be available, and will continue to transpose the 3GPP standards. And the same will be contributed to ITU as part of the obligations of SDO to ITU as well. And you can expect a substantial contribution in IMD 2030 from India. DOT has already launched the various subcommittees and committees on the 6G vision. India will release the 6G white paper very soon, and you will see the contributions flowing out of these efforts. With this, I would like to conclude, and I thank the organizers for giving me this opportunity to speak at this evening. Thank you very
Thank you, Professor Kuchi, for highlighting the journey of TSDSI in 3GPP and ITU, and how the rural requirement, which was actually global in nature, how it was incorporated into the standards at ITU, and the effort it took to actually get there and get into 3GPP now, with the proposed merger of these requirements into the 3GPP 5G as well. So this, as the objective of this topic is that making a global impact on a standard setting. So this Indian effort on LMLC and creating a solution for LMLC and then getting incorporated into the global standard is a good example. And as Professor Kuchi said, we are a young organization and we are committed to do much more, as we have already taken off for contributing towards 6G or future IMT 2030. So thank you, Professor Kuchi. Now I would like to invite Ms. Purnima Shandilya. She is a team leader at CDOT and SDS Working Group Vice Chair at 1M2M. And she has over 13 years of experience in various telecom technologies. Now, Ms. Purnima Shandilya, floor is yours for speaking about your engagement with 1M2M.
Thank you very much for the introduction, and my greetings to the distinguished speakers and panelists. And good morning, everyone. And I'm honored to be part of this event, and my sincere thanks to TSDSI for organizing this information sharing event. So I would be needing presenter rights. Yeah, okay. Is my screen visible?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you. So in this presentation, the brief outline of my presentation that I'll be sharing about 1M2M, TSDSI role, and contribution of TSDSI at Indian level and at international level, and adoption of 1M2M in India, and other significant contributions from TSDSI. So 1M2M is a partnership project having more than 250 member organizations associated with 8 standard bodies from across the world, and TSDSI is from India. So it was founded in 2012, July 2012, and the base standards for 1M2M were VETC Release 1 and 2. And all these standard bodies came forward to join forces to reduce fragmentation in the development of standards by collaborating and contributing in a common platform for standards, and integrating the existing ecosystem and standards, and finally enhancing the reusability by enabling different verticals to reuse the components which are common to them. So 1M2M is a common service layer. It's a software middle layer, and that sits between applications from various verticals like energy, residential, enterprise, healthcare, public services, and on the other side, the devices and the network. So this common service layer has the common functions which are required by all the verticals, like discovery of devices, security of devices, management of group of devices, subscribing to events of those devices, and finally data sharing data storage and sharing among from those devices and across verticals, and to be able to define the semantics for this data, and to be able to maintain the ontologies for these domains. So 1M2M enables all that, and the most importantly, 1M2M bridges communication technologies, 3GPP, fixed, NB-IoT. So 1M2M is the only first standard, I would say, it's the first standard that interworks with 3GPP, IoT, and NB-IoT features. And it's a global standard, most importantly, and not controlled by a single private company. So it unites established standards that we can see that on the left, we have BBF TR069 for fixed communication for device management technologies. 1M2M enables it. And then for mobile communication, we have OMA-DM. And again, 1M2M enables OMA-DM for mobile communication device management. And then for constrained devices, it enables and interworks with LWM2M and QAP, MQTT protocols, and interworks with 3GPP. And on the industry side, it interworks with the Modbus, OSGI, and for the home, home SGI, OSGI interface implementations, and for health, it gathers requirement from the health segment, and semantics, SARIF, and W3C WOT it interworks with. So this is the workflow in 1M2M that requirements, use cases of various domains are studied, and then the requirements are derived from various verticals, and based on those requirements, then the technical reports are formed, and then the multiple alternatives are and solutions are discussed for a problem, and finally, as outcome of those reports, then the standard specification, technical specifications are published. So 1M2M standards transposition and certification program. So it has been transposed to partner specification by all the 8 standard bodies as their regional standards in India. It is transposed by TSDSI, and on the recommendation of TSDSI, it is adopted as national standard by a telecommunication engineering center. And it is also transposed by ITU by its 4500 series. And for the transposition of security work in 1M2M, that work is already ongoing, and discussions are happening. And for a standards to be successful, interoperability is the most important aspect of it. And 1M2M conducts interoperability event every year, where the participants, global participants from different countries come forward and they test their implementations and identify the gaps in the standards, and those gaps are then resolved. And also awareness of standards is equally important, and TSDSI conducts industry days to raise the awareness and the use of standards. And another important aspect is the certification program. Certification of having sound certification process ensures that the implementation complies with what it is expected to do. So 1M2M also has a sound certification program associated with GCF. So now we come to TSDSI role in 1M2M. So TSDSI is partner type 1 of 1M2M, a global standards organization devoted to M2M and IoT. So 58 members, including R&D, academia, startups, government agencies, service providers, equipment providers, are associated in 1M2M through TSDSI. So TSDSI has transposed 1M2M release 2, and it is adopted as national standard by TEC. And TSDSI has also transposed 1M2M release 3, and it is in the process of adoption in TEC. So these here highlights the active contributors, active members from TSDSI in the specifications. So CDOT has over 400 plus agreed contributions in 1M2M specification, and has also developed a 1M2M based platform. and that is being used by various partners from like fire applications from Pyrox, and the feedback system and the transport system by traffic control system by CDAC, and most importantly the platform that is developed by CDOT. It interworks with 3GPP, IoT and NB-IoT features by using the 3GPP by using the 1M2M 3GPP interworking specifications. And then the IIIT Hyderabad is also doing a significant work in this field. They have established 1M2M based smart city living lab, and they have developed the MOOC, which is a course on 1M2M. And then CDAC is also working on 1M2M based platform in the transportation system. And then University Institute of Engineering Technology, Punjab University, has established Center of Excellence for 1M2M in various verticals, including agriculture and healthcare. So the other significant contributions in Indian standard bodies is that the discussions were going on in the BIS, Bureau of Indian Standards, for smart infrastructure panel. So for the reference architecture of IoT. So it is published as 1M2M is published as a reference architecture for under LITD 28, and it is TSDSI submitted recommendation for standardization as part of Intelligent Transportation Committee in NITI Aayog, and there are several reports that are being published by TEC, and all the members from TSDSI have contributed in 13-digit numbering plan or recommendations for IoT M2M security, and finalizing IoT standards for smart cities, and most importantly, security by design principle and National Trust Center for IoT. So how this adoption process happened? So first, after thorough analysis and studies of various specification, TSDSI did the thorough study of 1M2M, and finally it transposed 1M2M release 2, and it submitted this to TEC. TEC, on receiving that, formed two committees, a consultative committee and a telecom standards advisory committee. So the goal of consultative committee was to spread awareness of 1M2M, to deliberate on the specifications and standards, and to obtain public comments and resolve issues, and finally submit its recommendation to the second committee. And second committee has to act on the recommendation of CC. And finally, after all this process, 1M2M standards was adopted as national standard. So it was a significant milestone for the Indian community and for Indian standards. So TSDSI members and TSDSI, we represent various roles and positions in 1M2M, like steering committee vice chair is Mr. Professor Uday Desai, and Marcom vice chair is Shri Arindam Bhattacharya, and SDS system design and security working group, I represent as vice chair in that working group. And then we provide secretariat support to various subcommittees and working groups to ensure the meetings minutes and all. And then we are rapporteur of one of the specification, a very important specification, that field device configuration. So this specification deals with the configuration of information in the field devices even before they come on board to the platform. So any input contributions to this specifications are merged into specification by CDOT, and we are part of 1M2M task force for release 4 conformance test development. So for any certification of any standard for implementation, it is important to have a conformance test suite in place. So if any new feature can be tested if the conformance test suite is available. So we have contributed to the test case development for release 4 features, which were new, all the new features. And finally, we have been awarded with the Technical Excellence Award for outstanding and significant contributions in 1M2M. So TSDSI has organized so many events to ensure ecosystem engagement in India. So there are numerous webinars conducted, industry days conducted in September 17 or September 2019, and these are some glimpses and pictures of those events. In the left-hand side, this is developer event 1, and this is developer event 2, which was conducted in Delhi and Bangalore in 2017 and 19 respectively. So in this event, several participants from academia industry participated, and they learned to develop their 1M2M application in just one day. So it was a good enabler for application developers. And then the workshops were conducted, and some webinar series on the national standards for smart city perspective was also conducted, and TSDSI has also hosted 2 technical 1M2M plenaries in India. And this picture, has the pictures of the global engagement that we have. So CDOT, as TSDSI member, is contributing in the 1M2M standardization process. We are engaged with 1M2M since 2015, and we have been participating in all the interop events. We have participated in 5 interop events where participants from Japan, Korea, US, China, they all come with their implementation, and they test. We have tested implementation, and we have raised the gaps in those interop events and created the impact. And having participated in several face-to-face meetings and representing India created a global impact. And then there are hackathon events where we supported the development of 1M2M based application, and this is a winner team. And demonstration of 1M2M based standard platform in HC, France. And finally, with all this effort, having 400+ agreed contributions in the specification and contributing in the new features like field device configuration, security, and group management, and several new functionalities. So these are some glimpses of awareness and capacity building under India-EU partnership project, and have organized 4 rounds of multi-city tutorials and foundation day, and supported a panel discussion. So all these webinars and presentation documents and videos are available on TSDSI website. And finally, the most important initiative, the sustainable practice. The world has identified that the sustainable practice and goals should be are the need of hour. So 1M2M has also started a sustainability initiative. UN has identified 17 sustainability goals, and it was analyzed that out of these 17 sustainability goals, 8 goals can be achieved by IoT devices, IoT systems, and applications. So like sustainable agricultural practices, zero hunger can be solved by sustainable agricultural practices. Good health and well-being can be monitored by reduced air and water pollution mortality. Similarly, materials footprint and domestic consumption can be used for responsible consumption and production. And finally, having environmental sound technologies to achieve those goals. So IoT, through IoT, by having remote connectivity to these widely dispersed systems, and to be able to access the IoT data of these devices, and finally to be able to have cross-silo IoT applications. So like one vertical has deployed the solution, but the sensors, but other vertical or the other stakeholders, those who need the data, are able to share the data from those sensors or devices, and the low cost and low power devices. So these sustainable goals are published in the 1M2M white paper to promote responsible design principles, and various members from TSDSI like TCS and other members are actively engaging in this initiative. So this brings me to the end of this presentation. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you, Ms. Purnima Shandilya, for your the details which you have provided about the functioning and the structure of 1M2M, and the kind of contributions and engagement CDOT has done with the 1M2M by giving a large number of contributions which are accepted and part of the 1M2M specifications, how India as a country is also engaging with 1M2M. So we have, the companies or organizations contributing to the standard. We have TSDSI supporting that, and finally government accepting and promoting the standard. So all the three players in one standard, and how this ecosystem actually has helped acceptance of this standard in the country, or in the process of becoming a wider acceptance. So this is the good example what we can learn from the way it has happened. Thank you very much. Now I invite Mr. Abdul, Mr. Abdul Karim Abdul Razak. He is currently the head of Standards Development Department under Technology and Standards Division of the Malaysian Communications and Multimedia Commission. He is responsible for the development of technical standards to promote network interoperability and safety of network facilities and customer equipment. So, Mr. Razak, floor is yours, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mittal. Okay. So, yeah, we'll try to show my screen. Can you see my presentation?
Yeah, we can see.
Yep. All right, thank you. Thanks again for your kind introduction, Mr. Mittal, and good afternoon to all of you who are sharing the same time zone with me in Kuala Lumpur, and good morning and good evening to the rest of you. So again, distinguished host, guests, colleagues, and all participants. Also, I'd like to thank the organizer giving me the opportunity to speak in this webinar series. So I think I will be sharing how Malaysia as a country develops technical standards, and also contribute to the international standards fora. But let me begin with a brief introduction of MCMC. So if you can see here, MCMC is a regulatory agency that regulates a number of acts as listed down there. The main one is the Communications and Multimedia Act 1998, or in short CMA 1998, Postal Services Act, Digital Signature Act, and Strategic Trade Act. In doing so, we are guided by the 10 national policy objectives as provided in the CMA 1998, but I will not go through one by one in the interest of time. Okay. Okay, next. For the development of technical codes, this is been laid out in the Act. Sorry, maybe I show my screen again. All right. So as provided in the Act, specifically under Part 7, Chapter 3, technical codes is defined a voluntary industry code. All right. So this means it means all the same thing. It means that when I say technical codes, it means technical standards in the context of DCMA 1988. So as I think mentioned by the previous speakers, the technical standards aims to promote network interoperability and also safety of network facilities, and above all to ensure that we can deploy good ICT infrastructure for the benefit of our country and the people as a whole. Okay, matters for technical codes under the Act that actually runs various areas that the technical codes can be developed as shown on the screen. So it may be in regards to the provisions of network facilities, network services, application services, customer equipment cabling, approval of customer equipment and other access devices, and also to promote EMC, or electromagnetic immunity and compatibility. And of course, in doing so, we do not want to reinvent the wheel. So as much as possible, where technical standards are developed by the international standards bodies, we will adopt those standards, and perhaps with some adaptation to suit our own local requirements. Okay, technical codes may be developed by the industry forum. So in our case, it is the Malaysian Technical Standards Forum Berhad. So, or in short, MTSFB. So MTSFB has been designated as the Technical Standards Forum, so whose primary roles are to develop technical codes and recommend the registration of these documents with the Commission. So the development of standards may be initiated by the forum themselves or upon request by the Commission. But at the same time, the Act also provides that the commissions may also develop technical standards, especially in a scenario when the standards are not able to be developed by the industry forum themselves. Okay, let me introduce a little bit about the Technical Standards Forum, or MTSFB. So MTSFB is a company limited by guarantee, incorporated in 2004. So as I mentioned just now, it is designated as Technical Standards Forum by the Commission. Soon after the incorporation, pursuant to Section 94 and Section 184 of the Act, so membership is divided into two: ordinary or associate members. The membership are open to anyone or any organizations who could contribute towards the development of technical standards. Okay, the key activities undertaken by the forum, of course, includes the development and maintenance of technical codes. They also participate in standardization activities under the Standards Malaysia, who is the national standards body in Malaysia. In Asia Pacific Telecommunity, in particular ASTAP, APT Standardization Program, and also ITU. In the ensuring that the documents developed by the forum made aware to the public, they also organize awareness programs, technical talks in order to promote the adoption of the registered technical standards. On a case-by-case basis, or I would rather say project basis, they are also trusted to manage projects under the Industry Promotion and Development Grant awarded by the Commission. Okay, this shows the structure of the forum. It is led by the chairman, appointed by the annual general meeting, and then the board of directors also appointed in order to manage and decide on policy and key decisions by the forum. And for the development of standards, they are overseen by a reference panel appointed by the board of directors. And as you can see down there, reference panels also creates working groups or sub-working groups with a given responsibility to focus on the specific standard development areas. And for the day-to-day operation of the forum, they have about 13 full-time staff led by a general manager. Okay, in terms of the funding for the forum, they are mainly coming from actually two sources. The first one, of course, the membership fees by the forum themselves, but at the same time, the Commission also provides some financial assistance in terms of the industry forum grant. On top of that, in the undertaking projects, certain project like proof of concepts and whatnot, as I mentioned just now, that is on case-by-case arrangement. We do also disburse or provide project grants to the forum in order to undertake that responsibility. Okay, at the moment, there are 10 working groups under the forum. The first one is responsible for Internet of Things and smart sustainable cities. And as you can see, this working group is mapped to the ITUT Study Group 20. And the next one is the IMT and Future Network, which is mapped to the Study Group 13. Working Group 2, Numbering and Electronic Addressing, mapped to the Study Group 2 of the ITUT. Working Group 4, Network and Broadcast Infrastructure and Facilities, and Working Group 5, Radio Network Facilities, both are mapped to the Study Group 15. And then Working Group 6, Security, Trust and Privacy. This is aligned to the Study Group 17. Working Group 7, Digital Financial Services at the moment is inactive. Okay, this was previously created to follow the work of the ITUT focus group on digital financial services, which have completed the work. Working Group 8, Fixed and Wireless Terminals. This is the working group which develop standards for the product certifications. Okay, this is aligned to Study Group 11 of the ITUT. Working Group 9, Green ICT, Environment and Climate Change, which is mapped to Study Group 5. And last but not least, Working Group 10, Broadcast Technology, which is mapped to the Study Group 16. Okay, the development process of technical standards or technical codes. As I mentioned just now, the work may be initiated by the forum themselves, or it may be upon request by the Commission in order to fulfill certain programs or policies as enshrined under the Act. And upon the approval of the work item, then the work item will be assigned to the relevant working group to undertake the drafting work. And I think the next process would be the draft will be issued for public consultation. Normally that will take place for about 1 month. It includes also a public engagement session where the experts from the working group will be presenting or will be briefing on the content of the draft to the interested parties. At this, due to the pandemic, this is normally conducted online through Facebook Live and whatnot. Before they finalize the draft, of course, they have to consider any comments received during the public consultation, and then approval by the reference panel before they are submitted to the Commission for our approval and registration. So when it is submitted to the Commission, we will look into the documents to make sure that they are, they have given sufficient opportunities for public consultation for the various stakeholders to provide inputs and comments to the draft, and that those comments are taken into consideration before they finalize the document. If there's changes or that need to be done to draft, then the draft need to be resubmitted to the Commission before we can consider that for approval and registration under the Assembly 1998. So the whole process undertaken by the forum in the purple color there normally will take about 9 to 15 months. Okay, so this shows the trend of the number of technical codes registered under the Assembly 1998. We have not started. We have started quite good in 2007, but things slowed down a bit, until 2012 and 2013 we pick it up again. I think in the last few years, the forum has been very productive. In fact, last year, in 2021, we have successfully completed and registered 12 technical codes, and that includes those documents that are needed for the 5G rollout in our country. Okay, if you would like to access this document, this is publicly available. You may visit our website and look under the CMA register. Okay, and then the documents are listed or published under technical regulations, register of technical codes. Okay, moving on to the next area that I would like to share today is our contributions to the international standardization activities, in particular APT and ITUT. As of from 2016 to 2021, I think we have managed to contribute, and as you can see here, 5 contributions from Malaysia. Of course, these are all coming from the forum. 5 reports have been published, 2 are under study, and in ITUT study group 5, we have successfully 3 recommendations or supplements to the ITUT recommendations are published. 1 is still under study. And under study group 17, we have 5 documents which have been published and 1 under study. Okay, I'd like also to share on how we prepare ourselves leading up to the WTSA 2020. So in doing so, we have established national prep or national preparatory meeting. So this structure is pretty much aligned to the preparatory group under the APT, whereby we have the plenary checked by the commission, and we have 3 working groups: working group 1, working methods; working group 2, dealing with ITUT work organization; working group 3 on regulatory policy and standardization related issues. The 3 of the working groups are all checked by our industry experts from the forum. So based on the outcomes of the final meeting of the APT preparatory group, 29 APT common proposals have been approved, out of which 2 common proposals are led by Malaysia, and 7 others where Malaysia is the assisting country. So this will be our responsibility to bring these documents and deliberate that during the WTSA to be held in March this year. Okay, I would like also to share the fact that the industry forums also managed to sign memorandum of understanding and also memorandum of cooperation with a few standards development organizations, and that includes Telecommunication Standards Development Society of India, TSDSI, who is also one of the organizers for the webinar series. I believe that the collaborations and cooperations that the forum have undertaken with their counterparts in other countries have contributed positively towards the roles that the forum is undertaking in fulfilling what was intended to be when the Commission designated them as the Technical Standard Forum. So I think that's before I conclude my presentation. So I think the key takeaways from my presentation is the first one, the CMA 1998 provides clear framework for the development of technical standards to promote, among others, interoperability and safety of network facilities. And MTSFB is designated as the Technical Standard Forum, which are tasked to develop and promote technical standards. And the development of technical standards are based on an open and transparent process where not only the members of the forum can contribute and provide inputs to the draft documents, but any other interested parties may also do so. As I mentioned just now, we believe that collaboration with other standards development organizations are essential in order to promote cooperation and exchange of experience between various SDOs. And also, I think in order to contribute and to make sure that we also, whatever the works that we have undertaken locally can also be brought to the international fora. I think close collaboration between the Commission and the forum is very important to make sure that we can coordinate the participation and making sure that any contributions to the standardization activities at the regional and international arena are done in a proper way. So I think that brings me to the end of my presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Razak, for a very detailed presentation about the way the standards are developed and supported in Malaysia. And it's a good example of a very structured way of involving industry and other stakeholders into standards development, and also to collaborate with other international bodies to remain connected with the global standards organizations. And I think this structure, the way it has been shown here, is a very good structure which combines the authority of the government and also the participation of the stakeholders from private sector and other organizations. So thank you very much for that detailed presentation, Mr. Razak. Now I hand over to Mr. Calvin for the Q&A session.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mittal, and may I once again thank all of our distinguished speakers for the fascinating presentation so far. Fascinating presentation today. We have received 2 questions in the chat so far. The first question is a question surrounding elaboration on the impact of 5G deployments in light of the recent concerns seen in news about 5G interference with radio altimeters and consequently flights landings. And I believe this question will be directed towards Professor Kiran Kuchi. So Professor Kuchi, this first question is for you.
Thank you. This is something to do with, it's like 2 apartments built too close and then you hear from the neighbor. If the windows are too close by, this is what it is. So 5G is deployed in one frequency band, and then the immediate neighbor is used by aircraft. So, I mean, ideally, this has been something you study before the spectrum is auctioned. I'm sure it was studied, but something has gone not quite right based on what we hear. So, this is what has happened. This is specific to the region in which we are talking about. Not this is particular to the United States, I believe. So in that region, they have observed this issue, and now there's a lot of noise about it. I'm sure they will sort this out. But I think as far as India is concerned, I mean we don't seem to have this kind of this neighboring interference problem. So I would leave it at that. So one has to do all the due diligence, and it becomes the role of ITU and 3GPP becomes all the more important. You do coexistence study, especially in ITU. That is, who are the neighboring bands, and because in 3GPP you only worry about mostly about in certain neighboring channel, not all, but in ITU, it's their responsibility to ensure interference between other users like satellites, aircraft, whatever the other users are, public safety. So the role of SDO becomes a lot more prominent, and of course, the regulator has to do all this due diligence, the coexistence studies. Yeah, I will leave it at that. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor Kuchi. And if I may, in the interest of time, move on to the next question. There's a question about the review process at MCMC and what happens after the public consultation stage. And I believe this question would be directed towards yourself, Mr. Abdul. So Mr. Abdul, the floor is now yours.
Thank you, Kelvin. As I mentioned just now, we have a 1-month public consultation where the draft can be made available to the public, and interested parties can review the documents. They can submit comments to the forum. So all comments received by the forum will be reviewed by the responsible working group. So it depends on the merits of the comments, inputs received during the public consultation. So if there are merits to that inputs and comments, those may be incorporated into the draft document. So that is the process currently taking place, and in ensuring that proper decisions are made, as mentioned just now, whenever the document is submitted to the Commission, we will also review the decisions made by the forum, whether due diligence, due considerations have been given to all the comments provided during the public consultation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Abdul. And maybe if I may ask on my side a general question to all of our panelists today. I was wondering what approaches should countries and their stakeholders consider in order to make a larger impact in international standards fora, including how countries may cooperate at local and regional levels. So if maybe we could direct this question towards Ms. Purnima first, and then we can go from there. So Ms. Purnima, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Kelvin. So I think the first aspect is that the deployment at the regional level is the must, and in order to understand that what are the challenges which are delaying in the mass adoption of the standards, it's the first thing that is required at all the by all the standard regional standards and all the countries.
Ms. Purnima, I believe your microphone is not working.
Okay, could you hear
That's
me?
better now. Yes, that's better now.
Yeah, so I said that the participation, I said the deployment and the identifying challenges for the adoption of standards at mass scale is required at every regional standard level and at the country level.
Thank you very much, Ms. Purnima. Professor Kiran Kuchi or Mr. Abdul Karim, would you like to take the floor on this question as well?
Yeah, I can offer some comments. I'm really happy that you asked this question. I mean, this is something we have debated within TSDSI on and off for many years. If you look at the standards setting and the standard development process that's been happening for the last maybe 100 years or so, it is truly dominated by a few regions. In the beginning, it was just 1 or 2 regions, and now maybe it's a few more. So the standards are set standards are set for the first 1 or 2 countries that are going to deploy the technology. I've seen this firsthand many times. When you write the specifications, it is driven by market needs, and market need is dictated by the first 3 operators or 2 operators who will deploy the technology. So, and anybody else says something, it is just noise. And once the technology is developed, it has a 10-year, 20-year cycle, and I mean, you will not be able to alter the technology very easily. So what is the solution for this? The solution is you have to go back to, I mean, there is a two-pronged approach. One is in ITU. ITU is the country, the voices are, of nations. So that is where you codify your requirements into the IMT process. You got a 10-year window. So IMT 2030 has just started, and you got like a 2-3 year window. You have an opportunity to make your requirement heard. But unfortunately, not all countries have their own SDOs. So I'm pretty sure TSDSI is willing to champion the cause of many countries, around us. I mean, this has been something we talked about many times, and we would like to collaborate with all of you. And I'll give you an example. Some of the countries in Southeast Asia, you have lots of islands. Now, let us say you want to have you don't have fiber between the islands, and I mean, this is something I heard last time around when I spoke to you. And you want to give ultra low latency link with let's say 100 microsecond latency, and you want to do a remote surgery or something. Let's say I'm looking at futuristic. You'll not be able to do that if you connect a lot of islands using very high latency links. Okay, so lots of different requirements. You have jungles, you have forest, vegetation, hills, sea. What I'm trying to say is that we'll be most happy to work with you, reflect these requirements in the IMT 2030 process. TSDSI will be happy to do that. Not only will we do this in the IMT 2030 process, in 3GPP will be more than happy to develop solutions and make them into a reality to address the ITU requirements. This is the way I see, a collaboration can emerge. I'll leave it at that.
So maybe I can add to that. Just to share experience from small country, developing country like Malaysia. It's quite challenging actually for country like us to make an impact in the international arena. So I think first and foremost, we have to make sure that our house is in order first. So I think we need to have a proper platform, proper structure needs to be established at the local level, and for the standardization activities at the local level need to take place first to fulfill the needs of our country. And moving on, I think based on our experience, and as I showed that in my presentation, how we started to not really make, maybe not a big impact to the work of the ITU, but at least we have made some progress towards contributing to the work of the ITU TIF Study Group 5 and 17. So I think based on our experience, having a proper platform, proper structure at the local level where we can bring the various parties, and most importantly the local experts together in the forum, that actually would help towards country like us to contribute in our own small way. And as I said just now, moving on from that, once we have that proper platform and structure, I think it's about capacity building. We need to be involved. We need to attend. We need to participate in the meetings of the standards forum to know what are the topics, what are the issues that are being discussed at the fora, and by having the experts and the experience that we have at the local level, then we can identify areas where we can help to solve the problem and to contribute to the work of the standards globally. Thank you.
If I may respond, sorry for barging in, Mr. Abdul. You're right on spot. I think these have to start in a small way. I mean, we have made our own small beginnings, but the ambition has to be big. I mean, for a country like India, our ambitions are very large always. But you start small, and then you reach your ambition. That's always our aim. But as far as your inputs are concerned, attending ITU meetings of, you need a large manpower to attend and cover various ITU groups. Even the largest delegations find it challenging. Okay, so we'll have to find a way to sweep the whole spectrum of the groups. And the same in 3GPP. Of course, 3GPP we have a lot more expertise on that. We know how to cover it. But the point I'm trying to say is that we'll be most happy to share our information from TSDSI and its members with all of you. Whatever we know, whatever we can share. We are very open to do that, and we can take it from there.
And I would also like to add to that. So, like as we have learned that in 1M2M, most of the companies, most of the countries and the regional standards, they were not just contributing to standards at just the onset of the standards. They had the deployment in their countries. So though all the use case and the requirements and the new features were driven from China and from Korea based on their deployments and and identifying the real needs of the verticals. So having those in place, and especially India is a very different market, and it will have a lot of different use cases and requirements, and that they will be able to contribute significantly if we derive those requirements and at early stage.
Mr. Kelvin, can I chip in?
Absolutely, Mr. Shakya.
Thank you. Just to supplement the views of Professor Kiran Kochi and Ms. Purnima, in fact, what is required to create an ecosystem? Alone starting working on any standard doesn't result into the what actually you want to achieve. So you have to have the academia research supported work. You have to have the test beds. You have the body who can integrate the operators, academia, industry, manufacturers, chip developers together. So when you come out with some of your voices, those voices have the sound understanding with independent evaluation within the country. To this extent, you are not required to go anywhere. But at the same time, entire ecosystem may not be available in a specific country as it is available to the developed entities. So there, we may require to have collaborations even at the pre-standardization level. So I think the activities, even at the level of pre-standardization collaboration, are highly important. Suppose you have some vision, that vision is very well developed by your institutions and, in the research and development part, but then you want to test it and get it evaluated before you take up to the international forums. So for that purpose, I think as the country, we extend full support at bilateral level. We enter into any engagement and ensure that what is going to benefit the society at large are converged together, and then that wise, since we are partner at the level of the development of the standards, when we talk at the APT level or the 3GPP level or IETF level or wherever the intergovernmental platforms are there, or otherwise at the standard development organizations, we can voice that together at those platforms and lead the activities. So I think that is what we wish to offer, and at any point of the time we all are open, including, I think on behalf of the government, I make that offer that we are willing to work with all the nations together. We understand individual strength is limited, but if we join hands together, we can definitely sound the voice much higher, much stronger than the individual few companies which are leading the entire thing and converting everything into their business instead of taking it to the human principles. Over to you back, Mr. Kelvin.
Thank you very much, Mr. Shakya, and to our distinguished speakers for the amazing back and forth and deliberations in this regard. I'm cognizant of time, and so I understand there are a few more questions in the chats that we can take offline. But in the interest of time, may I now turn the floor back over to Mr. Mittal to bring us to the conclusion of this event. Mr. Mittal, the floor is now yours.
Thank you, Kelvin. So I think we had a very informative and inspiring presentations and talks from all the panelists here. And in the end, thanks, Kelvin, for initiating that discussion on the questions and your point which you mentioned. It was a very engaging and enlightening discussion which we had. And what can be seen is that the crux of the matter when it comes to standards is collaboration. Collaboration, it can be bottoms up, it can be top down. Starting from bottom up, industry and all other stakeholders, they collaborate, they come together, create standards like a platform like MTFSB or maybe TSDSI or similar platforms, and then go it up into the standards. And the other one is that the governments start the process. They set up enabling infrastructure so that people can collaborate, and then that collaboration extends to bilateral, multilateral, among the governments, among the standards bodies, and parallelly at the industry level. So because every structure cannot be self-sufficient, you need to depend on others. Everything is not available in a single country or a single company or with a single standards body. So that is very important. And as I mentioned in the beginning, that what is required is to support the journey of an innovation, a requirement and an innovation to be carried forward to global standards. That is where all this collaboration has to aim at and support. So this may even lead to thinking at the government levels to fund the people or the organizations so that they are because it requires money and a lot of resources to develop standards and sustained efforts for a long period of time to make a mark in the standards. So supporting the participants in traveling to the standard bodies, supporting their research projects so that they can bring out some innovations, and many kinds of supports that can happen. So the ultimate aim in making a mark in the global standards is that the innovations have to be taken there, and whole ecosystem of the standard bodies, governments, and all, they have to come together and see that all fair and development at the fair level, and also keeping in mind the people, the people in this world, ultimate users or beneficiaries are the people, the inhabitants of this planet. So all the aims, apart from the competitive considerations, the ultimate aim should be that the standards ultimately benefit at lower cost, accessibility part, everything is available. So I think the points which were mentioned in different by different speakers, which I summarized at the end of each of these the talk, combined of that and the ultimate aim of global standard setting, I think this workshop or this webinar has been very useful in bringing out all those points together and give a lot of food for thought for progressing further. So with that remark, I thank the distinguished speakers, His Excellency Secretary Emmanuel Ray Kantic, Mr. R. Shakya, Ms. Etsuko Okuda, Professor Kuchikaran Kuchi, Ms. Purnima Shandilya, and Mr. Abdul Karim Abdul Razak for giving, having their valuable time for this webinar and giving their point of view and a lot of informative and inspiring information sharing with the participants here. And I should also thank the organizing team from ITU and TSDSI who organized this, the topic, selected this topic, organized the webinar, and also ensured this smooth running throughout. So with that, thanks. We can close this webinar. Thank you very much, everyone, once again.
Thank you very much. Thank you
Thank
very much, participants and speakers, for joining this webinar. The next edition of this series will be conducted tentatively in April and will be on terrestrial, non-terrestrial networks in relation to rural regions. Looking forward to meeting you again in that edition. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Namaste.
Thank you.
you.